Hello. Well, good afternoon. It's wonderful to be back in Palm Beach County here at the Cox Science Center and Aquarium. Very popular with the summer camp kids, very good for education. That's part of the reason why the budget that we just signed last week actually has $10 million to help expand this facility. It'll be one of the largest science centers and aquarium in the state of Florida, and it's making a difference. I think it'll make more of a difference, and part of the reason that the legislature felt it was appropriate is because they had a lot of private support, so it wasn't just the state doing it all, and particularly Howard and Wendy Cox, they did another $20 million donation to the Science Center, so I want to thank them for really leading the way, and thanks to everyone for being here with us today. We've got a great group of folks with us. I have our Secretary for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Sean Hamilton, is here. I have Florida's Chief Resilience Officer, Dr. Wes Brooks, is here. Dr. Mark Rains, the state's Chief Science Officer, is here. Drew Bartlett, Executive Director, South Florida Water Management District, is here. We have Captain Dan Andrews, co-founder Captains for Clean Water. We have the Vice Chairman of the South Florida Water Management District, Scott Wagner. We have Jackie Thurlow-Lipsitch, Governing Board Member, South Florida Water Management District. Kelly Ralston, Vice President of Conservation and Public Policy, Bonefish and Tarpon Trust. Kate Wesner from the American Flood Coalition. Caitlin Newcamp from Audubon, Florida. And then Kate Ariza, CEO, Cox Science Center and Aquarium right here. And then the representative from close by here, John Snyder. So thank you. And is Bobby Powell here? They said he might be. No. Well, I want to thanks Bobby Powell for also supporting this in the budget. And so we signed the budget last week. There was a lot of things that we highlighted. I mean, the first thing when you're signing the budget, people want to know what are you going to veto out of the budget, because we have a line item veto in Florida and in many other states too. And so, you have this budget. The state's been doing very well financially. Even though we have very low taxes, you're seeing revenue come in way above what the estimates are every month. And we'll end this current fiscal year, June 30th, with about $21 billion surplus. And that's by far the biggest ever. But because you've had, and I talked to these folks, so we were in Southwest Florida earlier at a restaurant, and I was like, how's it going? They're like, well, 2021 was our best year ever, and we're 18% above 2021 so far this year. So you're seeing that all around the state. This is a #1 destination for Americans, but also foreigners. First quarter 2022, Florida represented a 45% share of all the international visitors to the United States of America. And no state has ever had that much of a percentage for foreign tourism, and we usually are behind New York. We're much higher than New York is now, and because we don't let people get harassed about their vaccine status and masks. So we were able, but because I think things have come in so much better than even forecast, the legislature did a budget, and I thought that we needed to downsize it a little bit. So we're going to announce some of the great things we've done with environment and conservation, but I think we need to continue to prepare for whatever could happen in the future, that either foreseen or not foreseen. I can tell you what D.C. has done with energy and money supply and inflation is not making it any easier for anybody in this country. And I think that the chance of having I say it's a Biden-induced recession. There's a significant possibility of that because a lot of the mismanagement and bad decisions. So, as Florida has made good decisions on our fiscal, good decisions on keeping the state open, all those things, we obviously see the benefits. But, we're not going to be able to escape what they're doing with energy. I mean, that's not something we control. The money supply, the massive amounts of printing of money. And now you're seeing every time people go to fill up their gas tank or go to the grocery store, this is like eye-popping what's happening. I don't know that they recognize the need to reverse course. And so the reality is, you're going to see probably interest rates go up. There's going to be other things that could potentially slow down the economy. Now, we're better positioned to deal with this than we were during the Great Recession. We were one of the worst performing states during the Great Recession. I mean, we got absolutely hammered. Now our economy, I think, is much more resilient, and I think we're unique among some of these other states because we're getting the policies right, and not just on taxes and fiscal. Even San Francisco has to recall this idiot prosecutor who gets elected because he doesn't prosecute anybody. And so you have crime is rampant. And so even in that city, they had enough. And so in Florida, we don't allow any of that nonsense here. I mean, you need to have safe communities. You got to have all this. So I think we're still gonna, we've got a lot going for us, but having that big financial cushion, having that, it's not just we have a bunch of different surplus lines of revenue. We actually have a specific rainy day fund, which was about $1.2 billion when I became governor. It's over $3 billion now. So we've basically almost tripled it since I've been governor, which is great. And we've never had more in the rainy day fund. And then you have a lot of just general revenue that's surplus, never have that much. Some of the trust funds have positive balances as well that aren't spending. But even with all that, we were able to exercise the line item veto authority to make sure that the taxpayers were protected and to make sure that we were continuing having really strong budget reserves. And you're able to look at each individual item and make these decisions. And so, I said, we're going to definitely get the budget under a certain number, and we want to make sure that we increase the reserves. And so we were able to do that. Before I became governor, the most that any governor had ever line item vetoed, I think, was like $800 million. I did 2 years ago $1 billion in line item vetoes because we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. Last year we did $1.5 billion in vetoes. This year we did $3.1 billion. So this is the record by far. So it's important because what we'll talk about today, what we've highlighted already, we'll highlight more stuff. Those are important priorities for the state of Florida: public safety, infrastructure, making sure we're doing right by our water resources and all of the natural environment, making sure we're doing things for education, which this budget had the biggest increase in teacher compensation in the history of the state. So we're doing all those things, which is important. We're doing it within a very sound budget with very low taxes. But now, because we have really strong reserves, if you do have a slowdown, if the revenue starts slowing down, we're not going to have to walk away from these commitments. You just take some money, you move it from surplus and plug it to whatever hole, if there even is a hole, to do that. And so I think that's the way you do it. I think that's responsible, and I think people are realizing that. And so if you look at what we've been able to do with this budget, I came into office and we promised that we were going to make conservation and Everglades restoration and water quality a big priority. And we set a very ambitious goal for what we would accomplish. Some of it was policy, like I removed the members of South Florida Water Management District my second day in office, and we put in new people. Some of it was the Clean Waterways Act that we did in 2020. Some of it was executive order, and that's very important, and you can't do it without that. But you also have to have a financial commitment to making sure that this stuff is going to work. We have the adequate infrastructure, like the C-44 reservoir, EAA reservoir, all these things that are so important. And so we set an ambitious goal of, okay, the previous 4 years leading up to us, we're going to match that and then do $1 billion more than the previous 4 over the course of my 4 years. And not only were we able to accomplish that goal, we actually did much more. So we were able, with this year's budget, what I signed last week, so starting July 1st, we will have $1.2 billion for Everglades restoration and the protection of water resources. That's a record. We've never done that much. And so our ambitious goal was over 4 years to do $2.5 billion for those initiatives. And with my signature on the budget, the 4-year total will actually not be $2.5 billion. It'll be $3.3 billion over a 4-year period. So that more than doubles over my 4 years, the previous 4 years, in terms of the commitment to these key initiatives. And since I took office in January of 2019, 48 Everglades projects have broken ground or finished construction, including the EAA Reservoir Project, which will help reduce harmful discharges to the estuaries. I also announced today, we had a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 2508, that was putting some requirements on, and our view is, we're going in the right direction, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So we vetoed the bill, making sure that we're going to continue with the policy that we had set out 3.5 years ago. So we've been able to do a lot for water resources, water quality, but what we were also able to do is launch a new initiative called Resilient Florida to be able to support infrastructure and key initiatives to help protect a state that's sea level by and large, and that is a storm-prone state. So we were able to get in this year's the next year's budget starting July 1st, we got another $500 million for Resilient Florida. So that'll be the 2-year commitment from both the current fiscal year and next fiscal year will be over $1.1 billion. And so what that will do is, so if we have projects in Palm Beach, it's not just us giving money. They are also providing money. So if you have $1.1 billion in state funds, that's going to be well over $2 billion in actual impact across the state of Florida with these projects. And so that's a huge amount of commitment. We also have more than $270 million to fully fund all 3 years of our state's first ever statewide flood plan, which we announced earlier this year, 76 projects across the state to address different vulnerabilities in different Florida communities. We also have $180 million to fund projects in the next plan, which will be submitted later this year. And additionally, up to $40 million is provided for planning grants for communities to develop or update comprehensive vulnerability assessments and adaptation plans. And so this builds upon the $20 million we already made in the current year. And these assessments are really necessary that you know what type of infrastructure you need to do in the first place. And so that's been a key thing, especially for some communities that may not have as much wherewithal as some of our larger communities. It's been really, really helpful for them. And so the grant program is significant. In last year's budget, we had $640 million to mitigate, prepare, and reduce the adverse impacts of these extreme weather events in our communities. And as a result of that investment, we've already announced earlier this year $404 million for 113 different projects across the state through the Resilient Florida program. And so this is relocating structures out of flood-prone areas, elevating or relocating wastewater and drinking water facilities, raising elevations of roads and buildings, and establish living shorelines to reduce storm impacts. So, and then we also have $264 million to improve our state parks, the infrastructure, which is, we've got some beautiful parks. And I was talking to Sean Hamilton about it, and he said it's hard. I mean, those are jam-packed too. I mean, people want to do there. It's hard to get in. And so we want communities to take advantage of all this historic funding. So we are announcing today that the application portal for many of these grant programs will be open starting today at protectingfloridatogether.gov/grants. protectingfloridatogether.gov/grants. Portals are open to apply for the wastewater grants, innovative tech grants, water quality improvement grants for both Biscayne Bay and for Springs Coast wetlands. There'll be other portals that will be open very soon, and Sean will be providing that information at the appropriate time. But all in all, you're looking at, if you look at what we've done for Everglades over these 4 years, I think it's like the previous 12 we've done more than combined just in our 4 years, and we've never had a run in the state of Florida where we've been doing this much to support our natural environment and our water resources and quality. So I'm excited. And so we'll hear from some folks who have been a part of this. So first, Secretary Hamilton.
Thank you, Governor. And I told the governor this morning, being a part of an agency for over 15 years, I can definitely say from the heart and the soul and the mission that we dedicated, we are honored to have the governor's leadership focus on the environment. And as the governor stated, he's taken bold, quantifiable action to make Florida's communities more resilient. Obviously he talked about championing the creation of the Florida Resilient Grant Program, but he also called for the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection at DEP to provide funding, technical assistance, and coordination among state, regional, and local entities, and appointed the state's first Chief Resiliency Officer to coordinate the state's resiliency effort. I won't say that he's the first, but I'm partial to say he might be the best, though. But under the leadership of DeSantis and the support of the Florida legislature, in 2021, Florida became one of the most proactive states in the nation in addressing the resilience of our coastal and inland communities. The governor mentioned that is our bread and butter, and so why not make that a priority and make sure we're putting all of the assets to play to make sure we do that to deal with our sea level rise issues, intensified storms, and inland flooding events. This included the passage of SB 1954, which ensures a coordinated approach. And again, that's important. If you think about the nature of what we're talking about here, providing the coordination, the science, and making sure that we are able to work together will definitely yield the benefits exponentially across the state. And so I can't underscore that enough. To support these efforts, the FY 21-22 budget included the most significant investment in the state's history to bolster resilience efforts across the state. And obviously, again, being the secretary at the agency who's leading the charge, I am, very partial to that commitment, but also committed on behalf of the many employees and the experts there to deliver on that financial commitment. So thank you, Governor, again, for that leadership. There's a lot of work to be done. We're going to be working on vulnerability assessments, grants, adaptation projects, like the governor mentioned, to address flooding risks and sea level rise to coastal communities. We're going to be doing sea level rise planning efforts and adaptation projects to strengthen critical infrastructure. And like the governor mentioned, those portals are open. I challenge our communities to reach out to the department, seek the advice, the counsel, whatever you can do, because it's important to the governor, but also the department, that all communities are accounted for as we look to the future to make the state a better place. So thank you, Governor, again, for your leadership.
Okay, and when we came into office, I think we actually announced it either in Palm Beach or Martin, somewhere in the, was it here when we announced the South Florida Water Management District, that we were going to be moving in a different direction? And so one of the guys that we were able to have step up was Scott Wagner from down in Miami, and so he's going to come and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Governor. It's great to have you here, and it's always you always feel pretty safe when the governor's here. He's got a great team, but I'll tell you what, standing shoulder to shoulder with these captains back here, you feel pretty safe also. I'm Scott Wagner. I'm the vice chair of the South Florida Water Management District's governing board, and it's an honor to stand here today with our governor and as well with Jackie Thorough-Lipich, my fellow board member, who's been a champion for so many of our causes. In 2019, when Governor DeSantis took the helm of the ship of state, he declared, "I will lead the efforts to save our waterways." He told Floridians, "We will fight toxic blue-green algae. We will fight discharges from Lake Okeechobee. We will fight red tide. We will fight for our fishermen. We will fight for our beaches. We will restore our Everglades, and we will never, ever quit." With an exclamation point, he said, "We won't be cowed, and we won't let the foot draggers stand in the way." Well, I'm here to say at the end of his first term, this governor doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. We are here today not only to thank Governor DeSantis for his staunch, steadfast, and unwavering leadership on Everglades restoration, but to again celebrate another record-setting budget Floridians can depend on. When people go to work and take their kids to school and go about their daily lives, time and time again, Governor DeSantis has proven he has their back. Governor DeSantis does not let you down. He lifts you up. What our governor is doing with this budget offers not just money in a meaningful way forward, with strategic and key investments that will keep these benefits coming for generations to come. When the governor took office, zero SERP projects had reached completion. With laser focus and a steady hand on the tiller and resources, we have nearly 50 Everglades restoration projects that have either broken ground, hit a major milestone, or finished construction. This is what happens when you have real leadership. The energy of our executive is contagious, and it translates into good government. Mountains can move when you have the right people at the helm, and there can be no question we have the right leader at the right time in the state of Florida. This historic momentum felt throughout the state right now is because of Governor DeSantis. On his first day in office, Governor DeSantis signed Executive Order 1912, setting up the environment as a cornerstone of his administration's platform. Fast forward 3.5 years, promises made, promises kept. And we are making those strides because we know that quality of life in South Florida is highly dependent and inextricably linked to effective water management. Our governing board takes this seriously, and we know what it means to the people in our community. We are prioritizing Everglades restoration, improving water quality, and reducing harmful discharges. We know we cannot do this alone. We routinely work with legislators, stakeholders, local and state agencies, and many experts on restoring the Everglades. I'd be remiss if I did not mention our Executive Director, Drew Bartlett, and all the staff at the district who engage in this meaningful work. I knew you were somewhere. Drew routinely engages in the public and stakeholders working every day to carry our mission forward. He truly understands and appreciates this type of funding for Everglades restoration projects. Our way of life in Florida is tied to the water. The Water Management District is always planning for the future to make sure that Florida stays a beautiful place to live and work for generations to come. I truly believe that there has never been more momentum for Everglades restoration, improving water quality, reducing harmful estuary discharges, and protecting the natural resources that make this state so great. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for continuing to prioritize the Everglades and water quality in the Freedom First budget. And I'd like to make a note on Senate Bill 2508. Without the leadership of this governor, you would maybe not have the courage of some of these captains for clean water who dropped their rods in the water and headed north to Tallahassee to participate in government to object to something that they found offensive to their way of life. The governor has now vetoed that bill. I watched those hearings, I listened to some of the captains, and I heard one of the captains say the following: "We don't quit when we're tired, we quit when we're done." And I will tell you something. Never before have the captains had a better partner or somebody more aligned with that mantra than Governor Ron DeSantis. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Wes Brooks, Chief Resilience Officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. A lot of folks don't recognize that Everglades restoration is actually the first modern resilience project here in Florida, possibly, I would say definitely the most important in the state of Florida. And so I just want to start by saying how great it is. We've had multiple governors over the years make sky-high promises and pie-in-the-sky promises about what they're going to do for the Everglades. But only this governor has actually moved heaven and earth to deliver. Okay? So thank you, Governor. As you heard earlier, we're announcing over $1 billion in state-directed funds going towards the planning, design, and construction of local and regional resilience projects. This unprecedented funding is going to generate work that folks are going to see and experience in their neighborhoods and on their commutes and while recreating in their favorite places for generations to come. It's the work that's going to keep critical facilities open following a storm surge event. It's the work that's going to allow first responders to access flood-impacted communities quicker after a storm, that will expedite the removal of storm water from neighborhood streets without impacting regional water quality, that will accelerate the deployment of nature-based solutions across the state to reduce erosion, improve habitat, enhance community aesthetics, and raise your property values. Because it's at its foundation, the Resilient Florida program is really just about delivering quality of life benefits to Floridians and helping to build inland and coastal communities that residents will remain proud to call home. The program's genius really is in standardizing a framework for assessing flood vulnerabilities across the state. It stands up the Florida Flood Hub to generate the comprehensive data necessary to inform local and regional decision-making, and the state then comes in and supports the development and implementation of local adaptation projects that reflect community-driven priorities to address those vulnerabilities. During my regional resilience tours across the state, I can feel the excitement in our local communities to begin breaking ground on these implementation projects. Almost 200 are being funded in our first year alone through the Resilient Florida and the statewide resilience plan lists. So I'd also like to take this opportunity to highlight the passage and signing of HB 7053 into law. Sponsored by Representative Demi Busada Cabrera, the law will formally establish the statewide Office of Resilience on July 1st, and I'm grateful for the governor's confidence in my ability to lead that office as Florida's Chief Resilience Officer. The statewide Office of Resilience will continue our ongoing work to better coordinate activities related to flood mitigation and flood resilience across state agencies and in coordination with federal, regional, and local partners. And beyond our primary mission of reducing flood risk and supporting community resilience, we will endeavor to continue building confidence that Floridians' tax dollars are being utilized wisely and that investments in Florida will remain a safe and attractive prospect for decades to come. And as always, we'll continue to implement the bold vision our governor has laid out to best position our state and all of our inland and coastal communities for the future. Thank you, sir.
Well, we're excited about being able to deliver yet again. When you come in, a lot of people do, these politicians will make all these promises, and then they always either just under-deliver or totally fail to deliver. Here, we set really, really high standards and high goals, and not only did we meet them, we've exceeded them. And so that's really what it's all about, being able to actually get this stuff done. I mean, we've got more to do, but for where we said we would be 3.5 years ago, we're ahead of where we said we would be. And I think a lot of people are really excited about that. And you're seeing a difference for sure. We were just down in Southwest Florida. I mean, these guys are doing great fishing. The restaurants are fantastic in terms of, I think they had a record year in 2021, a lot of them were telling me, and they're up 15% in 2022. And so it's a great thing. And, part of that obviously is being good stewards of the environment, making sure people want to come here and visit, but part of it just making sure these places could be open. A lot of people were criticizing me because we had these places open and we saved tens of thousands of jobs in that industry alone. And those were people, if we had thrown them to the wolves like Fauci wanted, you would have ended up seeing so many people plunged into destitution. And a lot of these family-owned restaurants and businesses would have just simply gone under. And so not only did that not happen and we protected these folks, a lot of them have never done better in the history of their businesses. And so that's what we want to see. Okay, question or two?
Some lawmakers are calling for a special session to address gun violence right now. There's a bill circulating. Would you
What do they want to do?
They want to, they want more regulation for high-capacity rifle magazines, mandating universal background checks, expanding red flag laws in the state of Florida. What is your response to that? Is your proclamation something you would consider? If so, why or why not?
So what we've done in this budget is have record funding, continued record funding for school safety and school security, as well as mental health. We've done $750 million just for school security since 2019. So we took the Stoneman-Douglas recommendations, we put those into effect in both policy and with resources, and it's made a really, really big difference. With all due respect to these leftists, they just want to come after your Second Amendment rights. Let's just be honest, that's what they want to do. They don't want you. They view you as a law-abiding citizen as the target of what they're trying to do. How can they, on the one hand, say they're serious about this when they support these people who let all the criminals out of prison and they don't prosecute people? Anyone else? So I am not deterred by any smear piece from these legacy media outlets. The only reason they're attacking her is because she does a great job, and she's very effective at calling out their lies and their phony narratives. And so whenever they're smearing somebody, you know that person is over the target. And so they're scared of that. I would be much more concerned with my press secretary if the Washington Post was writing puff pieces about her. Then I would think something was wrong. So the thing people just need to understand with these legacy DC, New York outlets is we don't care what you think anymore. We know you peddle narratives. We know you lie. We know you don't care about the facts. And so you can try to smear me or anyone in my administration all you want to. All that's going to do is embolden us to continue moving forward for the people of Florida. And so I think it was a totally ridiculous attempted smear, and it'll have absolutely no impact on anything that we're doing in our office in the state of Florida. Thanks, everybody. God bless.